with all of those announcements, I'm going to jump in with some new year thoughts and some new year principles, because it's always good for us to start thinking about things that are new, thinking about things that are applicable, because as I was reflecting on my own January of 2019, it was actually the start of a really hard season. And if you're connected with me on social media or through my blog, you have heard a little bit about my season in the desert. And it really started because of my fledgling stage of life. So last year in January, as all of my adult kids left and I was left with this high schooler still at home in his last 9 months of years of being at home, I felt very stuck. I had a lot of melancholy is what I'll call it. I won't call it depression. And I had a lot of moods that were melancholy and very sad and confused and feeling stuck. And it lasted for a really long time. And what I was able to identify is that a lot of it had to do with my stage of life. A lot of it had to do with the losses and the grief, which we talk about often here on the forum. It had to do with ready for my life as an individual to move to a different stage. It also had a lot to do with facing a lot of the hormonal pieces of midlife, and also facing a lot of the questions that come with midlife, questions that come with faith. And what I have been observing, not only in myself, but a lot of other moms in the midlife season who are either fledging or newly empty nest, is that as our children grow and as our children spread their wings, we tend to have a lot of things that rise to the surface from our past. And it might be from a past of a long time ago, from when you were in high school, from your early marriage. In fact, a friend of mine, hi Phyllis, a friend of mine, Jill Savage, referred in her retreat that we did, Empty Nest Full Life, she talked about the silver hair divorces. And that really resonated with me as a counselor, because I see kind of a rise in marital conflict during the time when the kids are getting ready to leave. So, right, we all think about midlife crisis, and a lot of this comes because a lot of our own things are rising to the surface. So today I would just want to share with you some 4 or 5 different things to think about as we're approaching a new year. And this is for all of us, both as moms and as women. And so my first question to you as you approach the new year is to think about, what is God wanting you to be present for this year with your family, for both yourself and your family. So as you're watching this, and as you think about the principles, as you walk away from this, I want you to think about what is coming up in your year. Because as you look ahead, not just in January, but as you look at your whole year for your family, no matter what stage of parenting you're in, if you have little ones, or if you have teenagers, or if you have older kids, for those of you who have adults, what's coming up this year that you need to really be present for, not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally. And as I've been in this fledging stage for a while. So 3 years ago was when I started writing Fledge. So I've kind of been in this whole area of thinking about your kids leaving and about the transitions. And really, when you're in that, that's your life for such a long time. But within the fledging season are big things that are happening. So one thing that happened to me during spring break, during this Christmas season, was right before all of my adult kids left. It dawned on me as I thought about the coming year, as we thought about the next time our whole family will be together, more than likely will be in August. I have a child who is a full-time missionary and lives out of the country. And so the next time we'll all be together is in August. And then when I thought about the next time we'll all be together, it's going to be in December. So for myself, no longer do we have these spaces where my family is together a whole lot. It's really only 1 or 2 times a year. And that caused me to think about all of the big things that are happening to my kids. Now, I'm not going to share all of those things because a couple things is, as your kids get older, you do need to be more private about what you share with others and what you share on social media about what's going on in their life. But what I can say is that sometime a couple weeks ago, before they were all ready to leave, it dawned on me that they were all leaving. They all personally were going back to a year for them that had some significant growth or changes or things happening in their life. So for example, I'll just talk about my younger two. My third child was going back to his last semester in college. And so he's looking at job interviews coming up. He's looking at all of that uncertainty that comes with those things, which then made me realize, wow, this summer we may or may not be moving him someplace else, far away, could be closer. He's going to need some transitional things. He's going to need a little bit of my time and attention this spring as he's getting ready to walk through all of those things, which means May might be a big month for me as a mom. Sometime this summer, I've got to leave some flexibility for him if we have to move him someplace. So just thinking about those things. And then again, thinking about all your kids at all their different stages. My youngest one, who was a freshman in college, he actually was going to an internship. So he wasn't just leaving for his second semester of school. He was actually going to going out west. He's in Arizona right now. And so that internship required me to think about, he's going back to some other things too. Now, when thinking about what's coming up for your family, it doesn't just mean what they might need from you, but also what physically, but it also means what they might need from you emotionally. So this is the thing about being a mom and being a mom of older kids and being a mom of adult children, while you're still raising them, is that we tend to think about what our kids need from us when they're in stages that we understand, or when we just happen to look at, he's going to need this because he's starting college, or we're going to need to do an open house because he's graduating, or all these other things, when really thinking about what each of your children need from you emotionally. That might actually mean that one kid might need a little bit more from you at a certain time of the year. Another kid may need you to back off. So part of the anticipation of kids leaving is that August comes, May comes, and there's a lot of emotions for you as mom. And part of what your kids need from you as they're going through the fledgling stage, and as you are too, is that they need you to back off emotionally. In fact, this is a conversation that one of my kids has had with me consistently as they have walked through young adulthood into adulthood, is, Mom, I need you to not be so emotional. And for a while I fought with that and thought about, no, that's my right. I'm a mom and I'm your mom, and it's my right to be able to be emotional about all these things. It can be, but our kids need us not to see that all the time. So as you think about your coming year, what's coming up for your family? I want you to think about that. And then maybe think about, are there big things that are happening? And with those big things, are there things you can do now to help yourself prepare, to help your kids prepare? But even that includes a lot of these with firsts and lasts. So what I did simply was, when I realized a week ago that my kids were all going back to big things, so not only was I praying for them, but I actually wrote them each a little note. And I just took a little bit of time to think about what they're going back to for this year. And I let them know, hey, what you're doing, this is big for you. Sometimes our kids get lost in the shuffle, especially your younger kids. Moms, your firstborns get all of our attention, whether we want to admit it or not. Sometimes our lastborns get attention. Sometimes the kids in the middle they get lost. Their big events get lost in the shuffle. And this may be a year for you. I've talked about in Fledge about how some years are really big. And so some years you might have weddings, you might have babies, you might have graduation. you might have first year in high school, just a lot of things all together in one year. So don't miss them because you're so busy focusing on the thing that's right in front of you, or the most glamorous thing. If you get so focused on that wedding that you forget about the graduation, or the prom, or the last prom for a child, or the first prom for a child, or you get so focused on having a new baby and having a grandchild that you forget that your youngest kid is still going through junior high sports. So just be aware. And so maybe send them a note to acknowledge what they're going into this year, to let them know you're praying for them. And I want to encourage you to do something meaningful, which is speak into the life of your children. I don't care how old they are. All of us as adults, we need just a word of encouragement. We need a word of affirmation. As the role of ourselves as mothers is that we never stop being a mom to our child. But what that looks like is different as they grow. But it also means that your adult kids and your young adult kids and your teens, they still need to hear affirmation. Because in their world, they may only see their failures, they may feel their failures, they may only see themselves in comparison to other people, especially in the age of social media. So take a moment as you start this new year, perhaps, and write a note to each of your kids. Maybe just text them. Maybe make a commitment to yourself. Not a lot. Again, you don't want to be too much, but maybe just make a commitment that once a week you're going to text maybe one of your kids, and just let them know, again, you're praying for them, and then perhaps just give a good affirmation. And when I talk about affirmations, I just don't mean like, oh, I just love you, you're the best thing ever. Kids really tune out from that. Why? Because they're your mom, and they really don't want to hear it all the time. They really want to hear what's valid. And so if you can think about perhaps in reflecting, again, so maybe use this time at the beginning of the year to reflect on something, to reflect on perhaps where have they grown? Where have they grown in the last year that you could write down something and share that with them? Or in a text message, perhaps share in a text message, hey, just wanted you to know I'm praying for you. I've just really been thinking about the ways that you've grown, and I've really just want to affirm, the way that you really stuck with that class. That was really hard. Or I'm just really proud of the way that you have grown in your friendships. Or think about a specific way that each of your children have grown, again, no matter how young or how old they are, and then share that with them. I think that's incredibly important. A second thing I want you to think about at the beginning of the year, not just what's coming up for your kids, but as we think about the start of a new year, as we think about your season as a mom, which is different than last year's January, than 2 years ago. That's one thing about this stage of life, is that things change so quickly. And so I want to ask you, Mom, what do you need to let go of this year? What do you need to let go of, perhaps as a mom or as a woman? And as I was thinking about what you need to let go of, I kind of went through Fledge, because there are so many things in the book that talk about letting go. But as I was thinking in perhaps a kind of concise way about what are some things that you may need to let go of, again, as your year changes, I just want to stress this so much. The whole fledging stage of life, the reason that it feels vulnerable, the reason that it feels hard, the reason that it feels stretching is because things are changing. When your kids are in elementary school, things seem to stay the same for a long time. When your kids perhaps are in high school, and so you have one or two that are in high school, or you're going through that high school season with your kids, it seems to maybe go on, right? One school year just rolls into the other, when all of a sudden your kids aren't in school anymore. Perhaps it's just one child who's not in school, or another child, and you're still parenting, or your kids are in college now, or you are experiencing the new empty nest. All of a sudden, what you knew isn't the same anymore. But every year is a little bit different. So I want to ask you, fledgling mom, for this coming year, as you think about where your kids are, what are some things you need to let go of? So thinking about your younger kids, this was something I always had to be thoughtful about. We always had younger ones coming up in the ranks. We have 4 kids, they're all 3 years apart. So it seemed like we always had someone coming up from the next stage. So all of a sudden that child isn't in that younger stage anymore. There's no more elementary kids. Oh, well then that means kids are in middle school. That means looking at what that stage looks like for your child, because this is something that's really important. Not only does time march on for your family, but time marches on in the culture. And in our family, my youngest and my oldest graduated 9 years apart. So over that time, all of these things started changing. Social media was a new thing for my youngest when it wasn't for my oldest. Phones, all of these other things that are happening in your child's world. So January is a really good time for you to be thinking about what's going on in each of my children's world, whether they're adult, whether they're young adult, teens, or younger. And what do I need to let go of? What do I need to step back with a little bit for each one of them? Where do I need to give up control? So as I was thinking about all the things we have to let go, so I was thinking of this picture of balance. I'm doing a retreat coming up on finding balance and finding balance in your life. And so there's this element of balance, which is letting go of something while you pick up something else. You're always balancing things, right? And the parenting world is no different. So thinking about, as I went through Fledge and thought about the different things that we have to let go of. So chapter 10 talks about giving up control. What are things with your children that you need to give up control? Chapter 11 talks about giving up that enabling behavior, giving up things that at your children's age appropriate stages, you need to back off so they can struggle a little bit. So chapter 11 talks about don't steal the struggle, and that's what we try to grab hold of. We try to grab hold of our children's struggle and take care of it for them. And we need to start taking our hands off as our children grow. And how your child needed you last year in a struggle might be different than how they need you this year. It should be. The natural progression of life says that you shouldn't be taking care of your children's struggles exactly the way you are this year than you were last year. Why? Because they're a year older and they need to learn and grow with the struggle. And that's what enabling and entitlement, that's what those two things rob your children from doing, is developing that struggle, developing the perseverance to overcome the struggle. The third thing is chapter 9 talks about the way that giving up your way. So moms, we need to give up your way, the way you think things should be done, the way you think your child should make decisions, the way you think your child should go in their current year that's coming up. And again, this is hard. When your child's a sophomore, you have a little bit more say in what you think they should be doing as they're looking at high school class schedules, as they're looking at, do they get a job, do they continue in their sports, as they start looking at colleges or things like that, the post-high school plans. But as they start, as they're a junior, as they're a senior, as they're a college freshman, where they are now in that in that whole area of them developing their own life and trying to figure out what they want for their life, every year we need to back off. You need to give up the way you think it should be done. And in the forum here, we've talked about that a lot. We've talked about and all of this is talked about in chapter 9, the way you should go. So don't create mini me's. Your children are not mini me's. I don't care how old they are. Back off and don't do that as much. Another thing you need to let go of is fixing things. You need to let go of fixing things. Chapter 12 in Fledge talks about this. And so if you struggle with trying to fix things in your child's life, think about what are the things you struggle with trying to fix. First of all, stop trying to fix them. There's nothing wrong with them. That perhaps will be a podcast or a Fledge forum or a blog post, something that's coming up about fixing your kids. When you are constantly trying to fix things for your kids, it makes your kids feel that they're not capable. It makes them feel like there's something wrong with them. And moms back off from that. Now, there are appropriate times, where you need to step in and help solve a problem. That's for sure. But that's different than trying to constantly trying to fix things for them. And as a mom of adult kids, this is the challenge that becomes the real challenge of parenting as your kids get older, is that it is their life and you can't just fix things for them. So the watching of the struggle, helping them figure things out, doing it more and more from a coaching standpoint and from a distant standpoint. Finally, the fifth thing I thought about, things you need to get let go of, is your expectations. Let go of what you think things should be like for this year. This is talked about in chapter 13, Life Beyond the Picture Perfect Image. Let go of expectations. As you think about your upcoming year, again, especially if there's big things, if there's a wedding, if there's a baby coming, if there's a high school graduation, if there is, if you're looking at becoming an empty nester this year, I know that's real for some of you. Let go of expectations. Some of the big ceremony type things of graduations, wedding, births, other significant things in your children's lives, you think a lot of those things, you've been almost fantasizing about those things for a long time. And so as you think about what's coming up in your year, think about your expectations. Think about whether they are healthy expectations. And remember, this is your child's life. So let go of your tentacles that have to be in all of those events. Rather come alongside your child. Even in thinking about high school graduations and post-college plans, think more about your child, help be a support system to them, but let go of expectations. And then what should we take hold of? So my 30 minutes is about up, so I'm going to go through these real quickly. What should we grab hold of? Actually, you know what? I think I'm just going to stop here, and I think that's going to be our topic for next week. So next Monday, I will talk about what we need to pick up in the coming year. So we've talked about what we need to let go of, and that will give me ample time to talk about the principles that I have here. So next week, we'll talk about what you need to pick up. So I just am so encouraged about the forum and about the coming year. Not just here on the forum, but I want all of you to know that that as I'm working on new ministry projects and I'm working on new book projects, and also as I work as a counselor. Thank you, Renee. So what you don't know, as you see me here in the Fledge Forum, and as you've read my book, and as you perhaps connect with me on social media, is that I do counsel and coach. That's my job outside of speaking and writing. And so my schedule is really full, and I try to practice what I talk about, what I write about, which is life balance. And so if my content will be expanding and will be changing, it won't just always be here in the forum. So I just want to encourage you to connect with me on social media, on Instagram, on my Facebook page at Brenda Yoder Speaker. Instagram is Brenda Yoder Speaks. And even connect with me on my blog. You can go to brendayoder.com and subscribe, and you get a free resource, which I gave you one of those resources. If you don't have the resource of ways to pray for your kids, I did upload that here in the forum, and it is right at the top if you go to the news feed. It's right at the top there that you can download it. And so anyway, I'm hoping to continue to develop more content that is tied to Fledge, but not always centered on Fledge at all of those platforms. So I will see you all on Friday as I pray for you. And I would love to hear from you. What are some things for 2020 that you are hoping to implement for your family? Maybe it's one of the things we've talked about, or maybe it's something that is something that you've committed to yourself to do also. So we'll see you I'll see you on Friday, and we will talk about things you need to pick up for your family for 2020 next Monday. Thank you so much.